Oh, yeah, so many. Welcome, everybody. We'll just, hi. You let me know when everybody has been.
I think everyone that's here is here, and I'll keep letting people in as they join.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Before we start, I do want to let you know we've been asked to record it for a few people who can't come tonight. So if you have any issue with that, just shut off your camera. But I mean, I have a pretty innocent audience, so I think you'll be okay. Tonight, I wanted to introduce you. I've had a lot of people talk to us about what a great job we're doing on social media lately and how often they're seeing us on Facebook. And I've been working with Emma from Fiddle Leaf Marketing. She's the other M to my left, if you're looking at the same as me. I don't know. And we started working with Fiddle Leaf in March of 2024. And I don't know if you have our case study in this presentation, Emma, but we have seen something along the lines of 127% growth since then. Not all of it has been smooth sailing. It's been a lot of trial and error. I've worked with other marketing agencies in the past, and each of them spent over $5,000 with no return on my investment, no real plan or strategy to move forward. And I know that a lot of small businesses deal with those aches and pains similarly. And I finally have found a company that really works for me. So this is not a sales pitch. I don't make commission off Emma. I just am trying to share the knowledge that we've learned so that you don't have to go through all of the trial and error that we did. All of that said, it is continuously a moving target. The algorithm is the algorithm. So I think that's another great benefit to working with a professional marketing agency, or at least having a contact with one, because it's their job to stay on top of these things. So tonight we're really just going to talk about, I've shared my love for Fiddle Leaf with many of my fellow shop girls and in Almont. As soon as I said girls, I was like, wait, no, there's men too, but no men. I haven't shared it with any men. And I think maybe we're mostly shop girls around here. And at the end of this, I'm hoping that you'll just have a better idea of where to start, but also whether or not you should start at all. So I don't think, you can spend a little or a lot on marketing through Meta and Google, also through, paying a marketing agency, but it might not be the right time for you. And I think that's just as important as learning how to do it properly. So we're not going to go through like a lot of introductions or anything because there's too many of us in here. But I'm going to let Emma sort of take it away. I don't think this conversation is going to take more than 30, 40 minutes. And we'll have some time afterwards to ask questions. If you've got a question throughout and you don't want to interrupt, you can pitch it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that. Is there a hand raising option, Emma, in this? I don't recognize.
Yeah, there should be. Attendees should have a hand raising option. And if you don't, like said, just put it in the chat and I'll make sure to watch for those. And then we can always open it up to at the end if anyone wants to come off mute and ask any questions as well.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention now, just in case I forget it at the end, is that all who are in attendance, I'll follow up with an email afterwards and connect you with Emma if you'd like. She'd be happy to do a free consultation just so you can talk a little bit more in depth about what it is that you do and how marketing can help you. And she also, part of that is she'll do a free audit on what you've got going on already. So that could include, I know when you did it for us initially, Emma, you kind of looked at everything. You looked at our website and found a few pain points there, looked at our social media and gave us some advice, and also gave us some really good tips for not reinventing the wheel, but sort of reusing content that we already had, which is my favorite.
Working smarter, not harder, right?
Smarter, not harder. That's right. So
cool.
At the top, Chantel O'Color says at the top of the screen, there's a hand raising option. Great. I think, or the chat is. Anyway. Okay, take it away, Em.
Cool. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me. Our partnership, as you know, is just invaluable to me. So thank you so much. And it's so nice to meet all of you. Like Emily said, we are recording, so I'll make sure if you need to hop, I know it's in the evening for you all. It'll be recorded. We'll send it after, and Emily will make sure you have my contact information. So let's get into it. So a lot of this is, just like Emily said, really kind of an introduction to what paid advertising is, some do's, some don'ts, just some things to know about, why it's important now more than ever. And then also, is your business ready, or maybe some signs of some other things to focus on rather than maybe investing in paid advertising at this time. So I love questions though, so please don't hesitate to pop those in the chat or come off mute, whatever you're comfortable doing. So let's get started. So as far as an introduction, I'm Emma Hushka, founder and CEO of Fiddle Leaf Marketing. I have been in digital marketing for about 8 years, specifically in the realm of paid social. So media buying on Meta, Facebook, and Instagram being kind of the big beasts, the big names in the game. I come from a background from a pretty large agency here in the US. I am US based. Please don't hold that against me right now. We won't get into specifics between our countries, but Emily can fill you in on my thoughts there. So I do proudly work with mostly Canadian businesses, and I am based in Portland, Oregon, so in Pacific time, just heads up there. But like I said, my background, I came from a pretty large agency here in the US. That worked with, we had kind of at our peak client count, about 1,000 clients on paid social. I started on the team. I was about the 6th or 7th team member when paid social was really starting to be a big part of companies' digital marketing portfolio. And then I resigned about 1.5 years ago from the vice president role of paid social to start my business after having 2 beautiful daughters in the last 3.5 years. I probably, like many of you on this call, wanted the flexibility of, owning my own schedule, having that a lot of that flexibility with my family, but to also really decide who I work with. And I really am passionate about women-owned businesses, and even, more so also mom-owned businesses, because of my experience and just really seeing some of the challenges that women face, just in the workforce in general, especially in corporate America, I'll call it, probably corporate Canada as well. But just, systematically that, there's just not enough resources and support for women. And again, a big part of Fiddle Leaf is to support women-owned businesses, not exclusively, but, that's definitely more of our direction. So that's a little bit more about me and my background, and we'll get into the specifics. So we're going to talk through kind of some definition and groundwork setting, so you can really understand, where digital marketing really comes into play, and some, again, definitions as far as kind of paid versus organic. There's a few different strategies for marketing, and it's all really important to understand where they come in, and where the strengths and kind of gaps are with each of those. Introduction to paid advertising. I'll walk you through the marketing funnel, which is maybe a kind of a cheesy way to describe it, but it's very effective to understand how marketing can help grow your business and ways to use different types of marketing to grow your business. Talk about a little bit specifics around paid search, paid social. Talk through, like we said, is your business ready? Some must-know lingo, and then some busted myths of like, is this true? So seems like a lot, but again, I'll try not to get too wordy. Hopefully you can already tell I'm really passionate about what I do, which I think is why Emily and I get along so well, because if you know Emily or follow Emily, she's really passionate too. And, we work way too much in our lives to not love what we do. Great. So getting into kind of, again, groundwork setting as far as marketing the difference between paid advertising versus organic advertising. So kind of straightforward as far as the word paid, but again, to set the groundwork, paid marketing involves there's financial resources to promote your business, your product or service. Typically, you're going to see more immediate results with paid advertising. You have more of a targeted reach available to you, and just more scalability. You can take it typically a lot further than you can organic. Examples of that, the ones we're going to go through a lot today: social media ads, search ads, video ads can be done in different formats, sponsored content. So basically you're putting money behind something to get results, versus on the other end of the spectrum is organic marketing, which is more naturally attracting, engaging your audience rather than paying. So these are what you'll, kind of the easy way to describe it, free. You're not necessarily putting any money behind this, especially to get your content in front of people. There's still agencies that support organic marketing. Email marketing is a really good example of this. I'm sure a lot of you maybe participate in email marketing. So if you're on Shopify, if that's your website provider, maybe you use some of the email templates that your website provider has. That's all part of email marketing. There's agencies that can help make your email marketing even stronger. But again, it is email is free to reach people via email. Social media, if you are posting on Instagram, on Facebook, posting, again, not necessarily running money behind your post, that is also organic marketing. That is free to post on social media, free for people to follow you, free to get your content in front of them. This is typically more long-term sustainability. Both paid and organic are very important. But again, one, you typically can see more immediate results because you're reaching more people more effectively and efficiently, versus organic, which again is also very important. It can just take some more time to see the results that you maybe want to or would like to. It's also, organic's really important for trust and credibility. It is 2025. Most consumers don't purchase or even trust a business unless they have active social media channels. So again, it's almost become, or it has become kind of commonplace for customers to expect, certain presence in what you call social proof with a business because of how common it is and how common practice it is. Organic's also pretty cost effective because again, a lot of these solutions are free. It's your time and energy that usually goes into that. Sometimes I know a lot of the leads or sales calls I'm on, a lot of people get to me because they're so tired of putting in a lot of time and energy into organic social media and not really getting anything out of it. And again, that's kind of the name of the game with organic. Just like Emily said, we'll talk about the algorithms. Meta and Google, specifically the platforms that are the most effective for marketing and growing a business, are multi-billion-dollar companies, and it really is kind of paid to play with a lot of these companies. So again, we'll get into specifics of what that looks like. Some more examples of organic marketing: word of mouth, which Emily is always my example for this, referrals, from existing business. I'm sure you all, again, have plenty of that. SEO, so search engine optimization. This is making sure there's keywords on your website that will appear organically on Google search results. This is something that we support as well, but it is, again, more of a long-term sustainable marketing approach versus paid, which is more typically immediate impacts. And then content marketing, this is thinking blogs, maybe speaking, things like that. All right, so that's kind of a groundwork between paid and organic. And now specifically our expertise in what Emily talked about of the growth we've been able to experience with Cheerfully Made is through paid social and paid search advertising. So as far as what those specifically are, social is paid ads through social media platforms. Primarily, most of our work is done in Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. They're the number 1 and 2 up there with actually YouTube for top used apps on a daily basis. And TikTok is, I wouldn't actually entertain that really at all right now because of the political climate with that app, but also TikTok Shop isn't available in Canada yet, but it is one, it is technically social media. You can run ads on TikTok if it makes sense. And then we actually work with a handful of business to business clients. So, a different demographic, but LinkedIn advertising is actually very effective for, again, more of a B2B approach than direct to consumer. And then on the search side, so these are, again, I'm sure you all make Google searches and probably have for years. So paid search is paid ads through search engines. So when someone makes a Google search, we'll give some examples here in a bit of, so actively searching maybe for your product or service that you offer. Ideally, you want to make sure you're appearing and towards the top, because there's studies that show that people aren't scrolling very much on the search results or getting to, second, third, 10th pages on Google search engines. Search also includes Bing, which there is an audience on Microsoft's Bing search product. It's typically an older demographic, so it doesn't always make sense for all businesses. And then YouTube, as I mentioned a bit ago, it's an interesting one because it's technically owned by Google. It's a search product, but it is kind of a more similar to a social media approach, and is actually, depending on what source you're looking at, is in the top 3 top used apps in 2025. So it's definitely very effective as well for advertising. Cool. So let's talk about the power of paid social media. So I already kind of mentioned this, and again, this starts off a lot of the sales calls I get is, I maybe saw success with social media on Instagram with my business, 5 years ago. Usually pre-COVID is a lot of how that conversation goes, or when people typically saw success. But basically, organic reach is shrinking. Facebook and Instagram, organic reach has actually dropped to as low as 2 to 5% of your total followers are actually seeing your content. I'm sure, again, I can only imagine if we could see hands, how many people would be like, yep, that's me, and how frustrating that is. You put all this time, all this energy into create content, and you're like, why did years ago I had all these likes, comments, engagement? Now it's not happening. It is shrinking. It is, again, the algorithms. There's more people that are paying to put money behind ads. Hence what we're talking about here. And it does kind of manipulate the algorithms and take up more real estate and more time. There's just more people posting. There's more people using these platforms and more people paying to get their content in front of you. The algorithms also change. So what goes into having a successful or organic strategy is a moving target. It changes regularly. Again, these are multi-billion-dollar companies. They're typically going to make sure it's best for how they're going to make money, and that's impacts businesses that maybe have really relied on organic social media to grow their business. All of that then means control and predictability is difficult, because if so you have maybe what we'll call going viral, or you got lucky and you had a post that went really well, and you got all this engagement. Maybe you got some clients or customers out of it, but your next one completely falls flat. You get nothing. There's maybe there was something you did in that first one. You might repeat kind of the same recipe and it doesn't happen again. Again, that's kind of the algorithm, the mercy of the algorithm. So you are, again, it's tough to predict that and sustain a business on that. Again, I already mentioned it, but typically with paid, you're just going to see faster results and just a more measurable return on your investment than you will with organic. There's more data. There's more decisions that can be made from the data to continue to see success, rather than kind of a crapshoot with organic. You have a lot more targeting capabilities. I'm sure, again, if I could see some hands raised, I assume probably a handful of you have tried to boost posts, which we'll get to this in a few slides, but typically recommend not boosting posts. If you have any money to put behind advertising, it's worth talking to an agency like us so we can efficiently use those dollars. When you boost a post, you have very limited targeting capabilities. The reporting data on what's happening is limited, depending on where you're doing it. If it's your phone or your desktop, you might have additional fees that aren't applied when you're actually running paid advertising campaigns. So again, this your targeting capabilities when you're not doing paid campaigns are really limited. It is, paid advertising also really helps with organic and your brand growth. And again, it's cool. They actually have a new metric. And Emily, I think I showed you it on our last call. But you can actually see how many Instagram visits you get from paid advertising. So not only, our goal with paid advertising is to get you sales and to get you new customers. It's not to grow your social media channel, but it does. And Emily, actually, we should look over since we started working together, how many new followers you've gotten. Obviously not all because of paid, but we can now see how many people from our paid ads visit someone's Instagram profile. So it does also help grow organically, on top of, again, what a lot of people care about, your, dollars and cents, getting, actual customers and clients from that. And as I already mentioned, running paid kind of helps you algorithm proof your business, because our algorithm is going to continue to change. It constantly changes, and having a strong paid strategy, again, kind of helps to fight. And I know Emily actually included this in her post she did about some of the testing we did and learned to leave as is, which we could get into maybe later if we have the time. But Emily had said, these are Meta, and Google are tough because they're, huge companies that are, it's hard to support and to think about supporting those when you could support local or small business. But the way I look at it is like they're going to be multi-billion-dollar companies, and why not do it strategically and take advantage of the machines that they are, and grow your business. So one thing to think about too. So as far as the digital marketing funnel, this is a really important, I would say an important slide, but just an important concept to understand. Any sort of marketing that you are either doing or considering doing is, this marketing funnel, which is really what the foundation of all marketing and really where it needs to kind of start or always come back to. And I'm not going to read through every single one of these, but give you some examples. So at the very top of the funnel is brand awareness. And to grow your business, people need to know you exist. And that takes education. That can be done all sorts of ways. What I'm doing, a webinar, is an example of brand awareness. Emily posted about it. I'm now informing you about my business, what I do for, what the value is of what I do, educating. That is, sometimes in free content, like we're talking about. That's done on social media, that's done in videos, infographics, but again, very, very important. You got to attract potential customers. And that is, again, what we call the top of the funnel. First time they've ever heard of you, you need to, again, educate who you are, why they should care. And then you start to head into what we'll call the interest consideration stage. Is they are, okay, they got my attention, I'm interested. What else do I need to be convinced to purchase from them or book a service with them? Case studies, Emily mentioned, we have a case study. I'll make sure to share it. That's proof. Like, hey, I educated you about who I am, why you should care. Here's proof I know what I'm doing. Or, reviews for e-commerce clients is an example of this. Here's proof that people love this product and how they use it or what they have to say about it. Again, webinar can be, in one of those categories. A free trial. I'm sure, some of you, depending on what you offer, maybe, give people kind of a trial run of this. That would be, again, in our funnel we're talking about here. That would be what Emily talked about of what we do of our strategy call, of our audit is, hey, not only am I going to inform you, but I'm also going to give you a little preview of specifically to your business what I can do. I'm bringing up my own business because I actively am thinking about the funnel. How do I nurture someone as a client to, go through this funnel? This is done for a business like Cheerfully Made. We have remarketing ads. This is where you see something on Emily's website or on any website, and then it follows you until you purchase it. That's an example. They're in that consideration stage. They already know about Cheerfully Made. They already discovered this really funny greeting card or tote bag. And then it's like, okay, when it continues to appear, it's like, all right, I need to buy that. It's, I love it, whatever it is. So you're just continuing to provide additional value propositions, whatever that may be, as you work them kind of down the funnel. Then comes that decision stage. So depending on the price point, the consideration window, which for a service like working with an agency is probably longer than buying a tote bag from Cheerfully Made. Price point's a big one, kind of how big the decision is, the investment. So this funnel can be, sometimes they become aware, they make the purchase, or, some additional steps being made. But the messaging and how you market and talk to the customer or client should be different in each stage of the funnel, because what the content that they need is going to be different. So that's why this is so important. And there's all sorts of ways between paid channels and organic that you can do this to make sure you have what we call full funnel coverage, to make sure you are casting a wide net and then giving yourself the best, highest conversion chance, all the way to that action. So part of that decision sometimes is discounts. This is where you'll see like, oh, what if we offer you 10% off? You were already considering it. Now we're throwing in, an extra percentage off. That is pretty common. And then the actual action. And this is, Emily talked about this earlier, but this is a really important step that we do, audit for any new client is part of it, a little bit more in depth than, what Emily mentioned of what we kind of include in this sales process. But we actually go through your checkout process. We usually ask you for a 100% off coupon code to kind of go through, if you're an e-commerce client or if you're a lead gen client, we always test your booking process on your website because we want to make sure that is as seamless, frictionless as possible. So that way, if we work to get, you're working to get anyone to your website to potentially become aware and maybe book or purchase with you, you want it to be as easy as possible to make that kind of final thing happen. And then retention. This is an extremely important part of the funnel that we're always talking about with our clients is, and again, Emily's perfect example, referrals, getting, word of mouth. Your happy customers typically are going to refer other business to you because they've had a good experience. They like your product, they like your service. Emily also just launched a loyalty program this month, which was awesome. So there's all sorts of unique and really important ways to continue to, again, nurture existing clients. That is typically cheaper than everything else we just talked about because it's a smaller audience. Your past customers are typically smaller than this huge net of brand awareness. But they're very, very important. And, you want to make sure if you attract a customer and acquire a customer for the first time, that they continue to stay in your funnel to continue to purchase from you. Again, depending on what sort of special promotions or programs you can offer is really important. I gotta make sure I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I know I can get really wordy here, so please jump in with questions. So this is now the funnel, but a bit more watered down, specifically talking about where paid search and paid social come into play. So you'll see very similar funnel, but again, where these products, these paid products that our expertise comes in, what they do. So social is the best in the business at brand awareness. I'm sure, again, everyone on this call has Facebook and or Instagram and sorry, my video's cutting out. You still hear me, all good? Okay. Everyone likely has social media, and I'm sure you have scrolled and maybe clicked on an ad and maybe purchase something from an ad. Very common, very effective. So they're just, again, the very best at capturing someone's attention with effective strategic ads. And again, either getting them to make that purchase, make that booking, or coming back later to do that. So basically people are scrolling through family and friends, and Meta has a lot of data on its users and knows before you do, or when you do, that you're interested in a product or service and will serve an ad. So again, it's just the best in the game at getting in front of people without needing intent. They don't even have to know you exist to create that awareness. And then comes in that consideration stage we talked about. And this is where Google search really comes into play because they are aware. They're either aware that they need I keep using the tote bag for some reason. So they need a new tote bag. So they're actively looking on Google for a new tote bag or a gift. Again, Emily sells so many unique, really cool gifts. So maybe they're looking for unique Canadian made gifts. You bet Emily will appear. So they know what they're looking for and there's intent. Absolutely want to make sure you're appearing then because that is, they're that much closer to converting, booking a service or buying something because they're actively searching for it. Social helps to inform them that you exist because you're seeing Cheerfully Made ads. And then they're like, oh, what was that? I need to get a gift. Or, I know they did Canadian goods. What was it? And they go search. They can't remember the name. They're like cheerful something, cheerful goods or whatever. Well, guess what? We know they became aware because of a social ad. We want to make sure when they're then looking for Cheerfully Made that we are covered and that they, again, a competitor doesn't swipe in and appear at the top of the search results. So social, the way that I kind of explain the relationship is social is great at creating demand and search is great at capturing demand. So they can't want your product or service if they don't know you exist or whatever you sell exists. So we create that with social, and then search, you want to be there when they're ready to make that decision. And they're both good at kind of get purchase, that booking, the big thing that most of us care about, because again, people make impulsive, what we'll call impulsive decisions and purchases all the time on social media. I can think of many I've done probably in the last few months because I saw an ad and I was convinced, or I didn't realize I needed it type situation. And search, again, there's intent. So these things happen. Again, they both really impact that purchase. And what we talked about with loyalty, they're both really important for loyalty because what Cheerfully Made, again, another example, if maybe Emily has new products or the loyalty program, we get that in front of her past customers. So they know, hey, you get this special perk, because of your loyal, your dedication to us or whatever. Not that, it'd be way better ad copy, but they're both really good at, once a brand's already familiar with you, making sure they know about new launches, new collections, new promotions, things like that to get them to repeat purchase. Cool. I'm gonna keep chugging. I'm gonna actually take a drink because a lot of words. So here's some example of paid social ads, screenshots of a few. First one is a Cheerfully Made ad. It's actually, the screenshot was taken a couple months ago, so it's a little, I don't even know if Emily, this product is you're like looking at it. So that's an example of a dynamic product ad. These are extremely effective for Cheerfully Made for an e-commerce business. Dynamically pulls, go ahead, yeah.
Can you just explain, because we have had the most success with dynamic product ads.
Yep.
And they are probably one of the easier ones for people to do, even if they're buying ads on their own. Can you explain what a dynamic product ad is if people don't know?
Absolutely. So a dynamic product ad, again, what's pictured here, like Emily said, is the most success we've seen for Emily, and is common case for most e-commerce clients. And it uses a feed, and like Emily said, once it's set up, can be one of the easier ones to run for a small business. But sometimes the setup is a little bit more in the weeds than some clients are able to do. But it does dynamically pull products from your website into a carousel ad. And because, again, Meta has hundreds of data points on its users, it knows of your product catalog, all the products you have on your website, which products the customer seeing the ad is most likely to purchase. So each customer sees a custom ad to them and what they're most likely to be interested in. So, if I'm actively looking for, actually I have one of Cheerfully Made's quilts. So if I was actively looking for quilts, it would serve me, different blankets and quilts that Cheerfully Made sells. And then if it doesn't fill that carousel with just that, it'd serve me other things that I'd be interested in, versus maybe someone else that's looking for literally t-shirts, and it would serve them t-shirts specifically. I saw you went off mute again.
Yeah, I just think that it's such I don't know how I didn't know that this is exactly what it was doing, but it's such a great way to remove some of the guesswork on your own end, like what you think people are going to want to see or what images to use. It's really taught me not to overthink it so much, and just to like go with the data and trust it. And so in that regard, it's saving us like quite a lot of time and energy. Miranda is asking, do you find customers getting confused in the comments since everyone is seeing something different? The comments below, I imagine the comments below the product ad. I haven't found that at all. I like it anytime there's an opportunity to reply to a comment, I take it. So often what I'll do if it doesn't quite apply, then I would respond, wait a bit, and then delete it. But does it show? So that's a question. Does it show it?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I don't think we've ever talked about it, Emily, because it's not really been an issue, because it's the engagement with dynamic product ads don't stay with the ad. So since it is, each time a dynamic product ad is served, it's unique to the person seeing it. So if there is a comment, and you've probably seen these, Emily, there will be a comment, but it, like you said, you delete it, or it just goes away, because no one's going to see that same ad again, technically, because it is a unique ad each time.
But so I get the notifications as.
Yep, exactly. Like you said, if someone has
it looks like it's there, but it's not actually staying there.
And then if someone does have a question, then you are able to answer, about a ring, and you respond, they would see your response, but the next person seeing the ad wouldn't see that comment, because that was unique to that user. Yeah, it's a really good question, though.
Great question, Miranda. I don't know.
Yeah, very good question. And actually, sorry, Emily, I just saw there was another one.
Well, I was just saying when you were
Oh,
talking about ways to for consideration, like when people in the funnel, if you're not, a lot of our audience are artists who
yeah,
really don't have huge margins in their stuff or don't like to give discounts, which I
absolutely.
totally appreciate. So there are other creative ways that you can drive a sense of urgency by like for a limited time only, or this is like only 3 in stock or that kind of thing. So just
Absolutely.
other things that could inspire decision making.
Absolutely. A lot of creative ways. And just like you said, I have some clients that just don't discount. Like they, maybe could, their margins could, they just don't and don't want to. They don't want their product to be discounted. And it's like completely okay. And I know you rarely do them. It's definitely not just like you said, there's so many other creative ways to help with that additional value proposition and urgency. Yeah, that's a great call. Great. And then the other ad example on this screen is another one of our clients that is more service-based. So this is, we're not selling products. So we can't use dynamic product ads for service-based lead generation clients because there's no products that exist. So we use still images. So an example of a static image with text overlay, calling out a promotion here. This is where we will use video content. If you have anything that existing, we can make video with static if there is, if you don't have videos, if you're not able to get videos, we can make videos happen. We can still have movement because video is actually the top consumed type of content right now. And Emily and Sarah are great examples of like can get really creative and do some awesome things with reels. We actually regularly are sending any clients that are open to making content ideas of like, hey, we consider doing this in it. Emily and Sarah, and I don't want to say always enjoy. I don't think you both always enjoy showing your face on camera. At times you do, and want to be more a part of that. But I have again plenty of clients that are like, I want nothing to do with being in front of the camera. And there's ways you can create content and video that aren't you. And if you don't want to be the face of your brand, you absolutely do not have to be. So I don't want anyone to ever be intimidated that that's not something that they're interested in or have the energy for. Totally understand. And again, so many other ways that we can get creative to get video content, or depending on what photos we have available, we don't even need it. So yeah, lots of ways that as long as we can get and we can actually use stock. If you don't have anything, there's AI anymore. We can work with nothing, but ideally we at least have something to go with. It's better. Cool. So a little example of what social strategy could look like. This is, a little bit more in the weeds, so I'm not going to stay on this too long. But social, a couple different ways that it plays into the funnel. Fantastic for brand awareness. As I already mentioned, you're educating. So a lot of what we're doing with this stage is testing various ad types. We just went through a few of those a second ago. So if you're an e-commerce client, we're testing dynamic product ads. Maybe we're testing video, depending on, Reels capability with how big that has become. I have GIF in here because that's basically those are still images that we use to create motion. If again, depending on lack of videos available, maybe testing static images, carousels. Again, if you don't have products and if you're a lead generation client, and the ad copy's like, why are you the best? Why should they care? And we're constantly just testing different value propositions to again, kind of because every single one of your potential customers is going to take a different value proposition. Price might be important to some people, quality might be important to some people, social proof might be important to other people. So always testing and seeing what those things are. And just like Emily said, the biggest thing we do is follow the data, always seeing the data, what's working, doing more of that. So it's not just like, meh, we'll see if this works. Meh, we'll throw this at the wall. We make all decisions with data, kind of goals and data top of mind. And what we've experienced with Emily, especially these last few months, is kind of which one, balancing that is not a perfect science. And it's kind of figuring out with each decision of like, how do we accomplish this goal and follow the data? And again, sometimes that is testing, learning, oops, go back. Emily, say you went on off mute.
I think what's also really good about especially the meta ads is that we could test them yesterday and discover that one of the 3 different tests is going just gangbusters today and totally put our entire budget, like you can pivot not pivot, I hate that word, but you can be very reactive with with your buying. And if something's just not working, like don't waste any more money on it, whatever. I think that's what I really like the most, is that I don't have to wait like a week to make a change. I can do it right away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Quick pivoting. And it is, absolutely, we typically want to make sure there's data to make those decisions. But once we have the data, it is like, all right, scratch this, try this. And, there is literally always something. And, again, where social really comes in, we talked about remarketing. They've been to your website, continuing to make sure, providing those additional competitive advantages, possibly promos, possibly the exclusive kind of language we talked about to get them back. They're warm. What's that additional kind of push they need to make that purchase or booking? And then lifetime value, we talked about that. Your loyal customers, targeting your past customers. How can we make them, continue to purchase from you and repeat book or refer you, etc. Cool. So search, again, I believe straightforward, but I always like to call it out because some people, you may do these things and you don't even realize what's happening, which, like Emily said, sometimes it's I think really cool for clients even to just hear some of these things, to now you are going to pay attention to ads and be like, oh, that's what she was talking about. This is an example of a search ad for a search for women's shoes. Here's Google Shopping. So if you're an e-commerce client, this is where kind of what we talked about with dynamic product ads. This is really where people make most of their money, and where Cheerfully Made has seen the most success is Google Shopping. So that is, again, I'm looking for women's shoes. You want to make sure you're appearing for that. And it is on the shopping, either on the shopping tab or at the top of e-commerce keyword searches. And it does then appear again at the top or towards the beginning, depending on a lot of different factors in your strategy. And then a traditional search ad is what's down below. This would be for local lead gen clients. So if you are a service-based business, then you wouldn't have shopping ads. So it would just be the text to search ad below, or a strategy like what's happening here. This is a Google Shopping ad for Zappos, or I'm sorry, is there one for Zappos? Maybe not, whatever, Vivi, whatever company that is, the first one. And then Zappos has a traditional search ad down below that it's more text heavy than it is the product images. So this is where search really comes in. Again, if you're an e-commerce business, really in Google Shopping, possibly a traditional search campaign. And then if you're a local lead client, definitely a search ad like the one below. We can also run, again, for local clients that has a service, we can run ads on Google Maps. So again, probably familiar with this. Salon near me, I do near me searches probably every single day for something. And again, you want to make sure you're at the top, and organically is how you appear at all. And then if you pay, you're the ones that are sponsored at the top. Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
So if you're a service-based business, because I know we have a couple in the room here, they wouldn't show, there's no image option for them to be shown up as, right? Like that's just strictly showing shopping.
There can be, and there's campaign types that you can upload images and that they can appear. It's part of Performance Max. So you can add photos. It is less common for them to appear. It really depends. And it's similar to Meta, what we talked about of the products that appear specific to the person seeing it. Performance Max is, again, a really popular strategic Google campaign type. And basically you give it a bunch of headlines, you give it a bunch of descriptions, you can give it photos and videos, and they can appear depending on the placement, because then you get into, they can appear on, again, Google Maps, Gmail technically is a placement. So all the different places Google can place an ad, an image could appear, but most of the time, to answer your question, no, there's usually not an image. It would look a lot more similar to the Zappos one down below, where it's text heavy headlines. And then depending on, the service, maybe Google Maps, then maybe there would be a photo, again, depending on what the service is, what keywords we're bidding on, and where it's going to appear.
Okay. Thanks.
But less likely than a product ad for sure. Cool. Oh, I did have a Google Maps example. Perfect. Like I said, these can have photos. You've maybe seen them before. It'll be like, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but like this is, I'm in, like I said, the Portland area. I searched children's gymnastics. This Kid Strong Like Us We Go, they could have like a little image here. Again, it just depends on the strategy, what's uploaded into the account, whether or not it appears. But here's a perfect example. If I made the search, near me, I'm getting two. You see the sponsored here for these first two, and then the children's gym is an example of organic. So, depending on so many factors, if I had a gymnastics business locally, I may not appear at all on the first page, let alone the second, third, which there's data shows people usually aren't leaving the first page for Google search results. Let alone am I scrolling, past the first couple, depending on, again, many factors. It might be proximity or, it's like, great, the Kid Strong Like Us We Go sounds good, and I look into that one or whatever it may be. So kind of example of, again, a local service-based business. Yeah.
So if the children's gym, for instance, because they're not sponsored, that's not a paid ad for them.
Correct.
So let's just pretend they're not paying for any advertising at all.
Yep.
But one of the ways they could be popping up is because of their SEO or things that
Exactly.
I mean, obviously they are using the words children's gymnastics and that's making them come up, but I just,
you're spot on.
The number one reason if they're not paying for advertising, then their SEO is
they just have a stronger SEO than the other ones.
And a Google presence, like a Google business account maybe too.
A Google business profile. The reviews probably help. But more than anything, and especially what I know of this location of the children's gym is in Northeast Sandy Boulevard, which is actually pretty far from me. So they must have really strong SEO to appear because this is so not relevant to me. Like this is so less relevant to me. I made the search. Well, I did the search children's gymnastics. This is an interesting one. I didn't do near me. And I might have changed the map to get more to appear based off of like my suburb, so it maybe helped it pick up one on like what you can kind of see it over here on the east side. So there's a few different factors that would actually make me think like that's how much better their SEO, their search engine optimization is. Because of it appearing, with some other factors that would make it not appear and be as relevant to me. But that's another thing, that goes into both paid, but especially organic, is the relevancy of the search. And again, Google has hundreds of data points on me and knows my intent and, what I'd be interested in. So maybe that children's gym is more similar to what I'm actually looking for. Again, this wasn't a real search, so I don't know. But yes, everything you said is exactly right. From this, I would say the children's gym is not running ads, or if they are, they're not spending enough to that they didn't appear, or they're not bidding on that search term. But they appeared because they have other factors that, met kind of those check marks.
Would you say that everybody should have a Google business profile?
If they have a physical location that they work out of, then yes. Me, for example, I cannot have one. I have a physical business address. I have an office downtown, but I don't provide services out of that address. I don't do deliveries. So technically my business doesn't qualify for a Google business profile. But if you have a physical location that you host or run your business, and I guess I think the definition is like customers can come to, or you run deliveries out of, then absolutely, 100%.
Thanks.
Yeah, very good question. Cool. And again, keep it coming because I want to make sure I'm answering the right things. So it's an example of a search campaign strategy. So kind of continuing on those questions you were just asking me, we can break this out very specific to, again, in this example that maybe has a zoo, they do concerts and they do events. In the gymnastics example, my daughter actually does go to gymnastics and they have a preschool she's starting at in a couple weeks. So for them, they should have a gymnastics campaign and a preschool campaign because the keywords that are going to go into each of those things that people are searching are going to be different. text and headlines should be different to be relevant to that search, but also the budget might be different. And just like you said, Emily, with, the pivots we're able to do on social, the same thing with search. If, again, this isn't necessarily relevant to your business with e-commerce, maybe a little bit more specific, or it could be, and we've actually done this, Emily, of, some of the lower price point items where like, maybe we don't want to put as much budget into cards, I believe has come up with Cheerfully Made. They're just, and again, I don't remember if it was the margins or like, whatever the reason was. Months ago with search, it was like, we actually, and again, I think we removed them, but we could, maybe Emily really wants to push cards. We could put cards in their own campaign and put more budget into showing for cards. In this example with the zoo, that's this business's primary focus. We're going to put more budget into that. We're going to, really focus on the investment there versus maybe concerts. Like we need to appear, but maybe the return on our investment's not as good. So we're not going to spend as much. So different ways that we can strategize around your business, what you offer, your goals, your budget, your return on your investment for providing those services or products to, again, really tailor the strategy to get you the best return on your investment, regardless of what you do. And that can change, just like Emily said, that can change. Ideally, we're not rebuilding every month because then we're not really getting a lot of data because the data is constantly changing, but that can and absolutely does change as we get data, because maybe the data tells us like, people aren't actually very interested in your events, because of X, Y, or the competition for events is more blah, blah, blah. Cool. Any questions, Don? I'll keep going. Cool. Emily, just unmute. That's been working well to see you. Got a question in there. So now we're going to pivot a little bit more about just like things to know if you do consider doing this on your own, or if you maybe have worked with an agency in the past or anything. If you end up working with us, these are just some these are words or abbreviations that are just important to know with digital marketing. The first one is, again, a lot of acronyms in this space, but CTR, which is click-through rate. So this is the percentage of people who saw your ads and clicked on it. Very important, because if we're running ads and no one's clicking on them, then likely not very effective. There's, probably a gap either in the ads that we're running, the audience that we're serving them to, some sort of disconnect. The next is the cost per click. So this is especially specific to paid search. You pay when someone actually clicks on your ad and goes to your website. So you don't incur a cost from a search ad unless someone actually visits your website, which is a very nice perk. And then you pay for that click, and that cost can be all over the board depending on a lot of factors. So that's, again, CPC, one of the biggest acronyms in digital marketing. CPM, this is specific more on social. You're paying the cost is you're paying for your ad being seen 1,000 times. So that's, again, with social, since there is no intent, it's, what we'll call the traditional billboard, way more effective and way more data behind it. But it is, again, you're appearing when no one's necessarily looking for you. You're popping up in there. So you're paying when that ad is served, or there's 1,000 people have seen it 1,000 times. A conversion. This is the number one thing most of us ultimately care about. All those other things are good, but you really, you want someone to buy from you or book. So that's we refer to in digital marketing as a conversion. That could also be filling out a form. That could be submitting an email address. There's and actually specific to Google, we get in a little bit more of like micro and macro conversions. We talk about that with our clients when we first onboard. Like, obviously, a purchase or a booking is typically the top importance things, but maybe you also really want to grow your email list, or you really want to, Emily does markets. That's another conversion for her, is getting people in the door at markets. It's not the number one thing she's worried about, or getting people into her retail store. Not been our number one goal with advertising, but those are also important conversions to her that, are then important to us. A lookalike audience. You've maybe heard this, maybe you haven't, but it's a way that we can actually take data of any customers that you've had before and use, again, the data that the data points that Google and Meta have, and it will find customers similar to your customers, which can be an effective strategy. Retargeting, I already talked about this. Remarketing, retargeting kind of are used interchangeably, but this is showing ads to people that have already visited your website. So they're already familiar. Really great way to get people to convert. And last one is a pixel or tag. Again, these are very important words to just know if you're ever going to do digital marketing. And this is kind of the brains of the operation. And this is how all of the tracking and data happens, is through a snippet of code that's on the back end of your website that helps track user activity, and then also collects that data to make sure that you're optimizing and the ads are as effective as possible. Cool. I just have a few more slides. We hanging in okay? Okay. So here's some myths. These are definitely things that like I hear pretty regularly and want to just like get to the bottom of. So the first one is ads will fix a broken business. This is not true. And this is exactly why my next two slides are like signs you're ready and signs you're not ready. So ads are really good at magnifying whatever is existing. So ads get your business in front of more customers. Yes, 100%. And if done right, which is what we do, gets your business in front of the right customers. But if your website is not good at converting people, maybe there's friction, maybe it literally breaks, maybe, and there's so many things that can happen, but then paid ads will just get more of that. If you have a low conversion rate, all sorts of things. Maybe, and I doubt this is true of anyone on this call, but maybe your service isn't that great. Again, not saying this is true of anyone. If a business provides a service that's not good, well, paid ads will get more of that in front of people. So it doesn't fix something that's broken. It just it magnifies it. Paid ads are supposed to work right away. That's also not true. They definitely see more of a return, immediate results than organic. And depending on what you mean by work right away, they will get people to your website, or we're not doing our jobs. We will get data, which ads need more time to optimize and gather data. That's kind of step 2 that happens kind of simultaneously. And then it starts to do its thing, but it is, unfortunately not a light switch. And you're going to, like Emily said, the 127% growth, depending on what we're working with, sometimes those numbers are possible. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It is, but that also did not happen overnight. Emily, if you recall, that actually took some tweaking. And I think you've told people and clients you've referred to me, I think you've said usually like 6 to 9 months is really where you felt, and I'll let you speak to that.
I feel like we did see immediate, I could see data, I could see traction, I could see numbers all going.
Something.
It wasn't necessarily translating into sales. I think the first things that we saw grow were like email list and social media following. People obviously like trying to learn a little bit more about us, which was great, all positive, but not necessarily money in the bank. So I would say the first 6 months were the hardest for me, because it did feel like such a stretch to invest in something that, like, as somebody with actually a marketing education, I really felt like I could do it myself. And for me, it's been worth having a professional do it. And maybe it helps that I understand it, but it took at least 6 months. And we've done lots of testing with it since. You hinted to it earlier. About 2 months ago, we were having a really, really slow start to the year and a really, really slow start to summer. And I started to panic, and I dialed way back on our advertising as well as our reach. Like, I tried to go super local, and it was probably like the worst thing that I could have done. It's taken us about a month and a half to get back to where we were, and now we're soaring again. But let me be a cautionary tale to anybody who's thinking it's taking too long to get the results. Hope has just asked a question. She says, so my product is almost 100% Christmas based. Am I almost too late for this year? No.
I was good. No.
You're perfect.
Almost too late would be like a few months from now, but no, this would be honestly, anyone, unless I can't think of anyone. I think, and again, I'm an advertiser saying this, but I think anyone should be advertising year round. Doesn't matter if you're seasonal, because you never, there's always people that are thinking about, depending on what you sell or your service. But with that in mind, Q4 is typically the best for especially
You
online
know what? She's
businesses.
saying that because we just told her it's going to take 6 to 9 months.
Oh,
Right?
got it. Got it.
Which
Sorry. I
feels
was like,
feels
no, absolutely. And honestly, to answer that question and what Emily just talked about, kind of this lull that we had was Q1, late Q1. So the 6 month, kind of like it's hard because there is no, some clients see that different. Sometimes clients see it faster. Some maybe takes longer. That has to do with, the time of the year. So for you, maybe 6 months would actually be 3. I don't know. I don't even know what your business is. I'm not promising. But because we're that close to, what would be Christmas, then, maybe that would expedite the learning. And again, it just depends on so many factors, but absolutely would say now is the perfect time, just like you said, Emily, to, and for any business going into Q4, yeah, this is the time. And I think, Emily, something you and I both say a lot is done is better than perfect. And I think with paid advertising, and I actually did a post today about one of my myths on here I'll get to, I need a big budget to get started. And this is just simply not true. You can start lean, and then obviously your expectations need to be aligned, because the more you spend, the more you make, which is what Emily kind of figured out through, I know she said it, she's like, I believed it, but then we did a little testing of the theory, and then it, kind of showed. But it's really about starting somewhere. And again, where Emily was when we first started in spring of 24 is different than where she is now. And it fluctuates throughout the year, depending on her needs and her goals. And that's the same for, again, all businesses that we work with. But I truly believe it's about starting somewhere, and it does not have to be this large budget. And I could get into, minimums of what I'd recommend to make it worth it. But something to keep in mind. And I'm going to touch on the boosting the post, because if you hear one thing from this whole thing, I'm rambling, really, really try not to boost posts. It is, again, depending on if you're throwing a few dollars, like, sure, if you must. And if you've seen success with it, again, I'm all about the data. Keep doing what's working. But most of the time, it's a waste of money. You just have so many limitations. If you have any money to put behind that, it's worth at least considering doing a paid campaign versus boosting a post. And then last myth on here is that you can just set it up and leave it alone. That'll work for a little bit, just like anything. When you neglect it, then it will not work anymore, and you waste money. So it does require monitoring. It requires tweaking. Typically requires creative refreshes, changes. Something happening. So sure. Again, just like if you want to do the bare minimum, you could do that. But if you want to grow and make that investment worthwhile, you definitely need some monitoring and updates.
Tracy has actually, I'm going to go with Miranda's question first, because I think it's a shorter one. And then I would love to talk about Tracy's question here. So Miranda's asking, is there a shelf life for ads? Like, how often should you redo or make new ones?
That's great. And exactly the one I was doing. I'm sorry, my chat box is hidden. So thank you for bouncing these to me. So that is a very good question. There are a lot of factors. No, there is not a shelf life. There's a lot of factors in KPIs, so key performance indicators, the last slide, a lot of data that we go into considering, like, is this ad performing, or should we turn it off, or should we refresh? So there's something called creative fatigue that is talked about in advertising. So there's a few kind of indicators that show there's maybe creative fatigue, which means like the ad isn't resonating, people aren't clicking on it. Yeah, that's such a hard, like, the short answer is no. There's different data points that say, like, this is working, this maybe is starting to not work anymore. But there'll be, and again, a dynamic product ad, again, Cheerfully Made, for example, will change ad copy probably quarterly as like a best practice. But I'm all about, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, or whatever. Ain't broke, don't fix it.
Also multiple options in there. So they're sort of scrolling through, and there's so many people and everybody, if you have 3 to 5 different blocks of copy, like each person's going to see all 5 versions at some point.
Exactly.
But it's a while to do.
So it's not just one ad, there's multiple ads they could be seeing, to Emily's point. So no, there's not, unfortunately, like a very clear answer, but there's a lot of data that kind of leads us to that.
Okay, so this is maybe it's a better question for the end, but I get excited talking about things like this. So Tracy is wondering what would be a great approach for product base to begin consistent digital marketing organically. And my thought on that is just getting a little bit organized and batching stuff in advance. So really looking at your calendar, calling out those key events, and just prepping stuff. Like have a folder on your phone or computer with stock images like ready to go. We also we like to use, actually I don't think we're using it anymore, I think we're using Meta now, but apps like Planoly and Later and things like that you can basically just, Sarah and I will dedicate a couple hours here and there when we have time to just populate a calendar. And sometimes we schedule them. Other times I personally just like having them there because sometimes I do have something to say, or like something arrived in the shop and I'm like, oh, this is easy, I'll do a post on this right now. But if there's a day that goes by when I'm just totally uninspired or not working, then I will have something sort of in the cache ready to go. And then also one thing that we did early stages, like pre-Fiddle Leaf. So if you have comments to add, I think the best thing you could do is actually, oh, I don't know how everybody's feeling about ChatGPT these days, but it's pretty awesome. Asking it that question and having it spit out a list. Like if you don't go on to your, I love ChatGPT too, but I think it's gonna light the world on fire if we all keep using it. But maybe that's somebody else is gonna figure that out first. But
not our problem.
But we kind of made a checklist of all the things that we could do that were free, and we did them as we could. And they included, starting by setting up our Google business listing, but then also, emailing all of our friends and customers and asking for reviews to start populating that. Every now and then I'll go in and add new photos to our Google, and all those things are helping with SEO. We every time there's an update, like we use Shopify, but we kind of schedule one day a week to do sort of like real business stuff, like computer stuff. And that's when we'll just pick one thing and we'll go in and like, look at the jewelry category and start going through products and making sure that, we've spelled jewelry all the ways you can spell jewelry, and adding tags and things like that. And ChatGPT is just such a lifesaver for that, especially when it comes to keywords and SEO. Or like blog posts, things like that, anything that's linking back to our site. Another thing that we do consistently is reply to every comment that's made on every post, or if we see ourselves shared, or if there's a Made in Canada Facebook page that I come across, I'll make sure to like introduce my shop onto it, and just sort of using every opportunity to that's free to get our name out there is what I would do. But I would ask ChatGPT for a list, and then I would just start hacking through it. Oh, Lindsay's got a question in person.
Is there an ideal posting frequency and time to post to grow things organically?
Is there an ideal frequency and time to post in order to grow organically?
Great question. Just real quick on your organic, that was spot on. I actually did a blog of 20 ChatGPT prompts to help you grow your e-commerce business. I wrote this with ChatGPT. I'm a huge, Emily, I know we've talked a ton about my use of ChatGPT. It is just like.
I'll send this in an email after. I'm just copying it for myself.
Perfect. Yeah. And definitely check out our blog. Someone literally asked, can you give an example of a blog post? This Miranda said, I never know what to do for those, so I've never done one. Ask ChatGPT. I actually just had ChatGPT a couple days ago write a blog schedule for me, and then ChatGPT is also going to write the blogs, and then I'm going to make sure. So it is a lot about the prompts you're giving, but the more you can actually use ChatGPT to write the prompt too. So the more you use ChatGPT, the more you'll see how to use it. But for blogs specifically, I would use that as a tool, and just to brainstorm ideas for blogs. And Emily, again, everything you said organically for an e-commerce business, I think is spot on. Using email, social media, all those organic tools. And like I said, check out that blog. So as far as the question of how many times you should post in time of day, as far as how many times anything you can sustain. And unfortunately, there is no, it's different for every single business. I would say like if I'm forced to give a number, like 2 to 3.
A day?
No, sorry, a week. Sorry, was the question a week?
We were all like, we're done.
No, do not do that. Honestly, I'd advise against that. Unless anyone in here is a social media content creator and that's what you're doing full time, do not do that. 2 to 3. Again, number one thing would be to choose something that you can stick to and make it realistic. Don't burn yourself out, because I'm sure probably some of you already are burnt out with it. I am. That's hence why I do paid for a living. What I actually have an executive assistant that's running mine right now, and she created a calendar. She's doing, and again, you check out our social media, you can see it, like certain days we're doing certain things, and the consistency has helped with creating the content. So she told me, like, on Wednesdays, we're doing women-owned Wednesday. I would love, please reach out to me. I'd love to feature, I'm featuring our clients, and then I want to feature other women-owned businesses. So please, when Emily shares some information, I want to share about other businesses. But so Wednesdays we do that. So like I do an intro video of the business we're going to feature, and then there's a carousel. So I think it helps to have dedicated, just like Emily was saying, planning it out in advance, because I think, one of the hardest parts and challenges with organic social is like the content creation. So the more you can use ChatGPT to come up with that plan and create the content can help. But I would say, again, like 2 to 3 is like typically kind of best practice minimum. But just make it something that you can sustain and that, won't burn you out, because there's just so many other things. And even if you do 2 to 3, it may not get what you want because it's still organic.
I've started to feel like when people are posting too much, it's almost like when they email us too much, it becomes kind of noise. So
absolutely.
I think when people start posting just to post, you can kind of tell.
100%. Because you're running out of content and it's not genuine. Yeah.
And I think too, like, we really want people to engage with our posts. So having calls to action and things like that are really important. Or like if someone just organically makes a comment, really important to reply to that comment, maybe with an open-ended question, so you get another comment. And that all of that helps as well.
Yeah, great.
Oh, time of day, I think depends on your audience, but there are some tools where you can find that out.
Yeah. And yeah, Meta has, and Emily, we can include this in the follow-up too. Meta has a fantastic content planner that actually will tell you, in Business Suite, tell you the times of day that are best for you and your followers, and when they're engaging and when they're online. Instagram now has also been doing and some of you may see it, like weekly and monthly recaps, that you will get a notification in your notifications that you have like a weekly recap ready or monthly recap. And in that, it will tell you the best times of day, best day and times of day to post. So Meta, and they're all free Meta tools. So they have a lot of those, but just like you said, it's just so dependent on your followers.
I don't want to forget about Miranda's question of giving us an example of a blog post. She says she never knows what to do for those, so she's never done one. And I think this is another area where we don't need to overthink. Like, blogs have been around for a really long time, but I don't feel like they're quite the same as they used to be. They don't need to be super wordy or long. We do have a blog on our website. If you go to cheerfullymade.com and just type in blog, you'll find it faster than searching for it. But basically, I just challenge myself to, for instance, we have our fall market coming up, and my ultimate goal is to have, now that we have the vendors, is to get people through the door. And so I'll do a blog post this week to share like who I'm most looking forward to coming, but I'll also use, I'll use all of those words like Ottawa Craft Market, or I'll just use words that I think people would be using if they were searching for local craft shows online. And it doesn't necessarily, like, all of those things will show up if you find me on Google, that blog post will show up, and certain words and stuff. So it's really, I wouldn't even really overthink it. If anything, if you were like made a new, I'm not sure what you do, but if you had a new product that you were launching, I would, write 500 words about it. And then I would probably take it into ChatGPT and I would say, can you please add these keywords to what I've written here and make it sound like me? and it'll do it. Also, I will give links to our Facebook event page and things like that. I would say that blogs are worth putting some time into because it is one of those free organic ways. It's also, it's a whole other topic, but like backlinking to your page. So for instance, if you use a particular product in whatever it is that you make, you can share a link to their website. They'll see it, they might reshare. All of those things really, really help your SEO too. It's basically just trying to like, I don't know, just like weave yourself into the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always, something to consider with like blogs or organic, you can always, and Emily mentioned this earlier, you can always recycle content. So like if you do a blog article on, like you said, one of the ingredients that you include, or you mention it, you could do a post. Like, and it's basically, it's just a different type of content using the same information or the same topic. It's actually a very strong strategy to, have
shea butter, and we make this hand lotion, and here's where you can buy it. But you talked about all of the, like something totally, it also positions you as an expert in your field, I feel. But sort of going back to what you said as well, like if if your website doesn't look great, you can drive all the traffic you want there, but it's not necessarily going to convert. And the same kind of goes with your social media or your blog. Like if people arrive at those things and they look kind of janky, they're not going to trust them, or it's not necessarily going to help you. So it depends. If you don't have the time to put into it, to do it, close to right, then I would say it's not worth it. But if you do, then it definitely can work hard for you.
Yeah. Great answer. Couldn't agree more. Cool. I have 2 more slides of like whether or not now's the time. But please, I want to make sure I'm getting through people's questions because that's the most important part.
Yeah, sorry, this has gone longer than I anticipated.
No, and it was a lot of, I get wordy. It is a lot of content, but hopefully at least beneficial. So here's some signs that you're ready. And a lot of this is exactly what, Emily, you were just saying as far as, the website, and one of those is on here. So you have a clear offer, like that's your product, that's your, service, like it's clear of what you offer. What we just said, your website or your funnel converts, like you have gotten conversions. You've gotten purchases from your e-commerce website, you've gotten leads, it does convert. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have, again, we get into conversion rate. We can increase conversion rates. Like Emily said, one of the first things we talked to her of like, hey, here's some things to consider. She just did a website revamp with her web team. We gave feedback on that, where it's always learning. I just literally redid my website. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but some of this foundational, we will also give you that feedback. Like if we ever meet with a client and we're like, hey, I actually had this conversation with a client within the last couple of weeks. I think you need to fix these things on your website. Then we do paid ads. Because I don't also want to waste anyone's money and drive traffic to a website that isn't converting. Your audience. This is important too. I think this is kind of, again, that foundational piece that paid ads are going to get in front of whoever you'd like, but you got to know how to talk to them. So depending on what your service or product is, you make sure your messaging and your company aligns with, convincing that person why they should consider working with you or buying your product. You have a budget and a timeline. We talked about these things. There does need to be an investment. It is paid. There needs to be dollars behind that. It does not have to be a lot, but there has to be something. In timeline, meaning, you're not looking to, see your return on your investment immediately. The timeline for some clients, you will see some, like Emily said, there will be something. You'll see traffic guaranteed. Or again, that's our part, and that's, I would say, the easy part, to be honest. But I don't want my clients to just get traffic to their website. I want you to get conversions. That part, depending on a lot of factors, can take, different amounts of time. And very important, and this is a realistic thing, we've had clients pause because they can't handle the demand. So again, if we're good at what we do and your website can convert, you got to be able to deliver the product or service that people are paying for. So this, people are probably like, I'd love to have this problem. It's realistic. You need to be, you got to have your business ready for it. Go ahead.
I will say that especially us being in Canada and our shipping options being so poor, while we could handle the increased demand, we really did get caught up in we tried a lot of things. We offered free shipping on orders over $25. That was not sustainable once we started getting so many orders. So we had to tweak that. But those are other things that I think, you might have the product, but do you have the boxes that fit, that fit it? And did you get those boxes for a really good price? And so I have definitely wasted money on packaging in the past just in order to fulfill orders. And it wasn't a problem that I anticipated. So just sharing if that helps anybody.
Yeah. And I think something, Emily, that we've talked about too, and remind ourselves of is, you had focused on your retail business for so long and not as much online. And then we just like magnified and blew up online. So there's things that I know you've learned that have been probably like regrowing pains from your retail business that you ran, that it was different. Just like you talked about it, like, well, the costs that go into this are different. The expenses that go into this are different. How I run this side of an online business versus retail is different. So, even with an established business and very successful, like Emily has had with Cheerfully Made, there's still regrowing pains when you're getting in front of, hundreds, thousands of new customers. So thanks for sharing that, Emily.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Someone's just suggesting that Chit Chats is amazing for shipping, and I have heard that. It's not something that is available to us out here, but I'm in a small rural town, so I know the major city centers do have Chit Chats for Canadian shipping.
Good to know. That's not one I've heard yet. My last slide. I have one about our services, but we can share that after, Emily, because I want to make sure people have time for any more questions. But here's some signs that you may not be ready. And this is like a yellow caution. Like, this isn't like, absolutely not. This is like, hey, maybe tread lightly, maybe, again, still worth a conversation. But you're still figuring out what your offer is, so kind of opposite. Maybe you are still working through what that is or what your product is. You don't know who you're targeting. Maybe you're still working through who your target demographic is or who you want your target demographic to be. I think paid ads, if you have a good idea, we can help maybe find more people. Maybe you think you only attract 50-year-old women. Maybe actually we can get you in front of 30 to 40-year-old women. So at least to have, again, that voice and that message to a demographic, a target audience. Your website doesn't work well. Again, a lot of the inverse of the last one. Your website's not converting, probably not the time to get it in front of more people. You're expecting an instant return. We talked about that one, or you don't have any organic traction. I say this is obviously pretty subjective, but if you haven't been able to effectively market your business in any capacity, maybe not the best time to then put money behind doing that. Because again, ideally something's worked at some point. And even if it's like, oh, this worked 5 years ago, it's not anymore. That's something, something worked at some point. But if you haven't, again, maybe you're so new, you haven't done any real social media or haven't seen a whole lot of success. Again, that may not mean that you shouldn't do it right now, but it is more of a, what I'll call a yellow flag, like maybe just a little more conversation that needs to go in if now's the time to invest in this, or if maybe, considering boosting up your organic a little bit more before investing in paid might be a better strategy. But all of those things, everything we've talked about, like Emily said, I would be more than happy to meet with as many of you that would be interested in, a one-on-one strategy conversation to hear more about your business, and then give you these pieces of feedback. Hopefully you can tell I'm very transparent, because if I don't think it's going to be a good fit or if it doesn't make sense, I will tell you that. Or, hopefully in a lot of cases it will. Or like, here's some things to think about. And then let's, come back when, those things happen, or what maybe we can recommend of people that can help support, maybe a website revamp or different things that we recommend you do. Or like I said, it's a great fit. And like, here's kind of what we could do for your business for paid advertising. So, I genuinely just love helping business owners, especially small business owners, and especially women. So I would be, again,
We get so excited when we make money.
I love making people money, because that's really is what we do. Like, our success
have any
is
questions that they would like to go on camera to ask? Or I want to invite, all of you may already be part of this, but Cheerfully Made has a private Facebook chat called the Cheerfully Made Maker Chat. I can send a link to it in an email, as well as some of the stuff that Emma has some links and stuff here that she shared, and how to reach Emma. But it's a great resource for, it's all Canadian makers and entrepreneurs, and it's just a great place to ask questions, or see what other people are doing, or even hear about upcoming markets or wholesale opportunities, that kind of thing. Does anybody? I have a few people in this room here that you haven't been able to see, but do any of you want to ask any questions? Okay. Tina has a question, but she would prefer to email you.
Love it. Good. We'll make sure she gets my email. I'm here for it.
Okay. Okay. I will. Well, if no one, thanks everybody. I'm sorry that went a little bit longer. I hope it's what you were expecting, or if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to respond to the email that I'm going to send. Oh, I'm so glad, Miranda. I will copy Emma on the email. Oh, here's some information for you too, if you just want to write it down. And my final notes would be that this starting digital marketing was a really, for some reason, a very scary thing for me, because I feel like we were doing pretty good organically, and I actually genuinely enjoy using social media, or at least I did. And but this has been a total game changer for us. We now do more than 30% of our business online, whereas when we started it was like 5%. Our sales are up across the board. They've even shown how digital marketing has increased the number of people that are coming through the doors of our town. So I think it's been great even for local tourism, to be honest. And I'm really, really like Emma. I mean, I'm even less, I'm definitely not going to lie to you, because I'm not trying to get you to hire me. So feel free to ask me any questions, or I might actually just take the 24 hours to send you this follow-up email, because I think it would be nice to include our little case study and how long it took us and what we did and that kind of thing. I don't know what all of your businesses are. I know that maybe our website's more established, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the only conversion that you're looking for. We could be sending people to your Etsy shop or your Facebook store or whatever. So I still think it's really, it's always good to learn these things, even if we don't use them right away. Yeah, so if that's it, thanks everybody, and I'll be in touch very soon. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for your time and for joining. Again, I'd be thrilled to speak with any of you, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Emily, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for being in the room there too. I didn't get to see you all, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye.
Bye.